You're listening to Nutrition Matters Podcast with Paige Smathers, registered dietitian nutritionist. Hey everyone, it's Paige, your favorite nutrition podcaster and dietitian. Nutrition Matters Podcast explores what really matters in nutrition and health with a sensitive and realistic approach. This podcast relies on the support of listeners like you and needs donations to keep this project running. To help support the podcast, please consider making a donation at pagesmothersrd.com/podcast. If you find this episode interesting, engaging, or helpful in your life, please consider donating, sharing with friends and family, and leaving a review on iTunes. You can leave a review about this podcast straight from your podcast app. Search Nutrition Matters Podcast, click Reviews, and then write a review. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook at Paige Smathers RD if you'd like to have a little more food for thought. Thank you for listening. Hi everyone, welcome back to Nutrition Matters Podcast. My name is Paige and I'm your host, and as always, I'm so glad you're here. Today's conversation is just really important one in the world that we live in, with so much interaction with social media and lots of healthy living blogs going on, lots of sharing what we're eating, lots of diet talk. Today I sat down with a really well-known food blogger and registered dietitian named Alexis Joseph, who is the blogger at Homo Sapien. She's also the proud owner of 2 restaurants in Columbus, Ohio. And she has her own story with her journey toward intuitive eating. And it's really a fascinating one and really an important conversation about what we see on social media and what real life is actually like for these people putting out this content. So I wanted to shed light on that because I know a lot of my clients struggle with seeing people on social media and what they're eating and how they're eating, etc., and feeling like they fall short or are inadequate in comparison. And I think this is an important topic to talk about in our culture today. So that's what Alexis and I set out to do in this conversation. So Alexis and I have a great conversation coming up for you all about her own story and her own process with food. And before we get into that, I want to make sure that you are aware of my online course, which if you get anything out of these podcasts and if you like the content and if you feel like these conversations have been helpful for you, the course really will help you take that to the next level. So if you're feeling like you need some help in terms of how to put this stuff into action and how to kind of go from point A to point B, so to speak, with your relationship with food, this can be a really helpful resource in the process. So if you're interested in checking that out, that's pagesmothersrd.com/course. And here's what one of my recent participants had to say about the course. She said, "Paige has provided constant support throughout the course that has helped me get rid of any guilt associated with food choices and replaced it with a compassionate curiosity of how I could better handle what might feel like a slip up. Instead of focusing on strict guidelines of a diet, I'm focusing on myself and what feels right for me. This has helped me find a wonderful middle ground between the highs and lows of dieting, and I feel like I'm just chugging along happily, trying to keep all things in moderation." So if you've been thinking about the course for a while, or if you haven't heard of it yet, I would really encourage you to check it out. And it really will help take healing your relationship with food to the next level and provide lots of helpful resources, including weekly discussions with me and fellow course members, as well as lifetime access to the course materials through the course website. And this is a completely online course, so you can do everything from your home, which is also a nice thing too. All right. With that, let's go ahead and get on with the conversation with Alexis from Homo Sapien. Well, hi, Alexis. Thanks so much for joining me on Nutrition Matters Podcast.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
Yay, me too, Alexis. I've been kind of hounding you a little bit to come on, and I'm glad that we finally found a time that worked. Recently, Alexis published some really awesome articles on her blog about her own transition and journey with food, and it just really spoke to me, and it was just such a beautiful thing to see, and I'm so excited to talk to you about that process for yourself and to hear about your journey. So that's why we're here, is to talk about you and to learn from your experiences. So
Yes, it's been quite a journey, so I'm excited to share.
great. So for those of you who don't know Alexis, she is kind of a huge deal. Alexis runs a blog called Hummus Sapien. And just tell us quickly about your blog and kind of when it started and what the scope of it is.
Yeah, so I started Homo Sapien in 2011. I was in college, I was a sophomore, and I always loved to write and I loved food, and I was like, let's combine the two, and never ever thought it would like be anything more than a fun little thing that me and my dad read.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really started off as just like posting recipes and those kinds of things, and then more than, it'll be 6 years actually in August, but it really grew kind of more into a career probably a couple of years ago. And really what it is now, I kind of call it a multifaceted food, wellness, lifestyle, and inspiration space. So I share a lot of recipes. I like the blog to be a really approachable and fun space. And these days I talk a lot about intuitive eating and finding happiness and, self-love and through food, and kind of recently I did a accidental but really got it happen, kind of a rebrand that happened really organically, where my focus shifted from pretty like clean eating and harping on a lot of nutrition to really focusing more on, again, intuitive eating and just bringing the fun back into it and sharing kind of my perspective on really nutrition overall. So
yeah, and
that's the story of the blog.
That's awesome. I think I've been following you since I got on social media, or at least Instagram with my work. I was like looking for dietitians to follow, and so I've been along on the journey, and it was really fun to see you come. That first, I think it was the first article you came out with. Was that one the one that was the I've been changed for good? Is that kind of when you kind of came out, for lack of a better term, as like kind of changing some of your perspectives, or am I wrong on that?
Yeah, that was the post, and I got such incredible feedback from that. Some words that actually brought me to tears about just really the connection that's there, and it's so important to me to spread a message that brings me even closer to my readers. And it's one thing to post a recipe that goes viral on Pinterest, and to grow, and that's awesome, when those things happen. But to me, what really brings meaning to my work is, providing content that really inspires people and can help people for the better. So I got kind of sick of just doing recipes, and I really found a new passion for talking about, disordered eating and the like. So.
Okay, and I'm so excited to, get in your head and hear your story, so to speak, just because, I think we have this view of food bloggers as just these specimens of perfection when it comes to food, and we all know that perfect eating with food, perfect eating doesn't really exist, and when people pursue it, it turns into really unhealthy behaviors, and so. I just love the idea of being able to hear a real, a food blogger with a really big following talk about what it's like to have so many people looking to you for advice and for recipes and for guidance, and then to make a shift in your own life and to just hear about the response you got and the experiences maybe others have shared with you, and to see how that message has spread. So that's sort of the scope of what I want to talk about today. I do want to sort of rewind a bit and just hear a little bit about your story growing up with food, and just talk about, any important experiences or stories that kind of shaped why you became a dietitian or things along those lines.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story because I feel like where I am now with food is actually how I grew up, like how I was with food, throughout childhood. So I use the word normal, even though my family is so far from normal. But normal's not cool. It's not exciting. So anyway, I grew up with a very normal, view of food. We ate everything, and food was celebratory. It was never restricted. My parents would never dream of commenting on anyone's weight. It wasn't a thing. We ate good food. We enjoyed it. We were never forced to finish our food. We were never it's never like that. There was gentle nutrition, I'd say, from my mom. If I got home from school, she'd say, would you like some fruit? Would you like a yogurt? She didn't, but if I wanted, she'd buy me like a chocolate bar or two, and I would love that. Maybe the cookies she bought weren't like the super processed kind, but she still bought us cookies. And if we wanted a bowl of Frosted Flakes, we'd eat a bowl of Frosted Flakes. So I grew up with like a really good sense of balance. And I also grew up with friends whose parents were kind of the opposite, whose parents, we knew their houses had no food. They grew up with parents that were super restrictive about the food in the home. And, I saw those friends, some of my best friends, end up with serious eating disorders. So how I grew up with food was really lovely. And I feel really blessed to have had that. And my kind of shift to plant-based eating, my mom's like never had a lentil. So that was, I did not eat that kind of growing up. We'd grill and we'd have fruit salad. It wasn't like we're eating out of a box, but we weren't eating like vegan by any means. We never ate tofu, blah, blah, blah. So, really in college, I took this trip to Israel on Birthright and got, I met a couple of people that were really plant-based, and I got really passionate about it from the perspective of preventing chronic disease. Not from a weight loss thing, not from I never counted calories in my life. I didn't even study nutrition in the beginning. Like that just really wasn't, it wasn't at all the forefront of my life. Like in college, like in high school, my favorite snack was like Wheat Thins with Baby Bell cheese and Diet Coke. Like I didn't eat terribly, but I wasn't like running around eating perfect bars and blah, blah, blah. And thank God for that.
Right. That's a great way to grow up, right?
Yeah, it was like so free, and it just wasn't a thing. There was no upset. Like I loved to eat. I always loved food more than the next person. My mom always thought it was funny, but it wasn't like an unhealthy obsession or anything. Then in college, went to Israel. That was influential for me. I read Skinny Bitch. I watched Forks Over Knives. I kind of like did that whole thing, back when in 2011, and really got super, super inspired. Probably obsessed would be a better word, for the whole plant-based movement. My blog everything was vegan. I was selling vegan food blogs. I just thought it was so cool, like what you could do without meat and dairy. And again, the body of research with preventing chronic disease. So that was really my passion for so many years. And I'm still very passionate.
Yeah. So tell me, like, what was your fascination with preventing chronic disease? Was there something that was in your genetics that you were concerned about, or was it just in general very interesting to you, or what drew you to that, do you think?
It drew that. So I started to develop this interest in nutrition like along the way, right? And like I had the cooking interest, I just wasn't always so like nutrition focused, and that kind of started developing. And I say that with a passion on preventing chronic disease because there's a lot of, I see a lot of clients that go plant-based to have a reason to restrict, essentially, to be candid. And that's by no means saying that people that are vegan aren't doing it for animal rights or for health like I was. But again, there are a lot of people I realize now that are doing it kind of for maybe not the healthiest of reasons. So I didn't have any chronic disease. I didn't know anyone with a chronic disease, really. I just was like so enthralled with that. And looking back, it's interesting to think about because it's like, I didn't have a chronic disease. So when I was really craving eggs and not eating eggs because I was vegan and very like adamant about it, I kind of look back like, did I need to be so rigid? Probably not.
Well, okay. So did you what did you think during that? Was it sort of like white knuckling it through some of those I want eggs type of moments for you, or what was it like?
So the cool thing for me with my experience is that like Instagram didn't exist in 2011. So like my inspiration for becoming vegan was like what I absorbed on my own. And then like Oh She Glows was like the big, which she still, Angel's so amazing. Like those are my inspirations. So it wasn't like I was doing it because everyone else was, I guess. It was, and I'm not saying that's why people go vegan, but I kind of was like on my own path, which was cool. And I wasn't really like it wasn't really in people's faces because, unless they were reading the blog. But no, I wasn't white knuckling it. I was so passionate about it. Like I loved it. It just was like, it was just so cool to me. And I really was only like really straight vegan for a year. But again, I wasn't like, if I really wanted Jenny's, like I would eat it, occasionally. But, it got to this place where like I'd want something and then I wouldn't eat it because I'd be like, I'm vegan, or like I know if someone sees me eating this, they're going to be like, I thought you were vegan, which happened all the time, was so annoying. And then,
yeah, so people kind of like policing you.
Yeah, totally. And I was like, get off my case. Like, I am who I am, but, food judgment's a whole other story. But as college went on, I was still plant-based, but it was not like, I was definitely not vegan. Like I wanted the freedom to eat what I want when I wanted it. So while I was still really passionate about those kinds of foods and ate them maybe 90% of the time, I would still enjoy, if I wanted an egg sandwich, I'd have an egg sandwich and I wouldn't feel guilty about it. But, I'm way more lax about it now than I was before. And it's especially with things like dairy, which for me, was so not a part of my diet for so long. And I don't eat like a ton of dairy now, but I still will eat like yogurt or my favorite egg sandwich that has cheese on it. Like it's just like not a thing. And what I realized was like, food was just such an obsession, and I would say like I've never had an eating disorder, and I haven't, but I definitely feel like I was on that orthorexia spectrum where I was obsessed with healthy eating. And now I look back and again, this is not, I hope this doesn't come from a judgmental place, but I see these feeds that are just like all it is bowls of food, and I feel for those people because I just hope that they have like other outlets, because I was in a place where like all I thought about was food, and I didn't see the harm in that until later, when like at like myself now, for example, if I don't bring a lunch, like I'm cool. Whereas a couple years ago, it's like, oh my God, I don't have my lunch with my fruit and my thing and my perfect blah, 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 that was like very in control. That's how I was. And it really was just this overall, really, I was just like in too deep with food. It was just too much. And it was too much of my mental energy spent on what I was eating. And like, yes, health is important, but it's so much more than food.
So yeah, I want to hear, because I've never eaten vegan. I mean, I eat vegan meals occasionally here and there, but it's never been something that I've followed. And I just, as someone who had the childhood experience of having a very kind of normal, great relationship with food and eating lots of different kinds of foods without guilt and all of that, what did it feel like to be vegan? Like, did you feel a sense of kind of like, I don't want this to come off as offensive either to anyone listening, but
no,
like a superiority to like, oh, look at me, I can like do this even though it's hard? Or was there a sense of like purity, right? Or like what was going on for you? Were you hungry all the time? Like, how did you do?
No, I definitely was not hungry. No, not at all. I was like whipping up like pretty cool stuff. I wish I had the energy to cook these days, but like, honestly, if I could say it in a word, like I felt like empowered. I felt so passionate about something that I had never dreamed. Like I literally said the words to my friend, like I would never, like I read Skinny Bitch and I was like, yeah, that book was really good, but I would never be vegan, which looking back, that book is like so incredibly fear mongering. It's like ridiculous. But I never in a billion years, and you can ask anyone in my family, like never would they have said I would become a vegetarian. It was like such a ridiculous foreign concept. That now, I'm not a vegetarian because I eat seafood sometimes, but I do like identify with that word now, and it's just so interesting. But no, for me, I really did not feel by any means any sense of like superiority. I think that can definitely happen because I think people like almost unnecessarily like challenge themselves with these like diets, and for me, it totally was a diet, I guess, but like I didn't ever, like I feel like I've never been on a diet. I didn't look at it that way. For me, it was like this whole thing that got me so like enthused. And I'm a very like passionate, enthusable person. So I was just like so into this. Like it was the coolest thing to me. So, and it was kind of like, again, it was like my own thing. Like I had no friends that ate this way. I wasn't really like posting things on Instagram. I was just like in my own world, like exploring these new foods that like even almond milk, like all of a sudden all my roommates are drinking almond milk and like cooking tempeh. And for me, I was like, this is so cool. Like these are like environmentally friendly and like healthy. And I really had the best of intentions. And I still think that whole going through that really changed my life for the better, because I just learned so much about just about like plant-based eating. And you know, things have changed now, and it's definitely not like that all in that it was before. But no, I mean, you can definitely, like I said, I still eat that way just because I like it and it's what I'm used to. And my boyfriend, like, you know, I pretty much, unless I'm making salmon or something, we eat vegan every night for dinner. And it's not even like, I'm not even trying. It's just like what I'm used to and what we do. And like, obviously in the restaurants that I run here in Columbus, like it's a big focus, and it just becomes something that's second nature. I'm not like overanalyzing it. It's just like how we cook most of the time. And we go on the weekends, we get brunch, we get eggs, I had pizza last night with plenty of cheese. Like it's just becomes this freeing thing where it's not a big deal. I'm not analyzing anything, and it's just like, it's a beautiful place to be.
And it seems like it's just not all or nothing. It's sort of taking like the good parts of what you loved about that, but also combining some of the other things that you love about a different way of doing things, right?
Yeah, and like I think such an issue with you know, a lot of type A people like myself, where maybe you fall into these patterns because you want to be in control, or maybe you've lost control of some aspect of your life, and this is something you know you can control. It just becomes this, you know, like, yeah, like you said, just this all or nothing mentality where I'm going to only do these things and blah blah blah, and it just becomes so intense so quickly without realizing it. And there's so much in the media right now about a billion, you know, everyone has an opinion, and anyone that looks thin or muscular has all the answers, right? So,
right,
you know,
that's so true.
I'm giving nutrition advice these days, so it's like, sometimes I'm like, I don't know what to eat. Like, should I be eating? You know, it's crazy the amount. Like, it's, you know, it's how saturated this industry is.
Lots
is insane, and it's because
input.
It's how it's selling products, and it's, you know, it's. Diets make money because everyone wants, you know, a quick fix. So I think I had another answer to your question, and I just forgot it. So
it's okay. You're doing great. One thing that I just want to point out is we really tend to look at behaviors as like the litmus test for whether or not you're a healthy, quote unquote, or like a normal eater, whatever. Or whether you're struggling with disordered eating. And I like hearing your perspective because, you know, there are quite a few people who do struggle with disordered eating and fall into this, you know, veganism world, and that can be a behavior that can be problematic. But it doesn't always mean that it's problematic, right? And you've found this nice meshing of some worlds that feels right for you. And for anyone listening who's saying, well, I really like eating steak or whatever, Alexis and I aren't saying like you should do everything exactly the same way as her or me. We're all allowed to come to our own places with food that might look a little bit differently than someone else. And really what matters is less about our behaviors and more about kind of the intentions and reasons behind them. You know, you could be using veganism as a socially acceptable way to restrict. And if so, that's something you might want to rethink. That's probably not very healthy for you long term. But there's also space and room for that to be what works for you, you know? So that's
I think that's such a good point, because I mean, even like, sorry, did I cut you off?
No,
you were going to say something?
No, please keep going. You're good.
So, you know, when I changed my eating habits or adjusted, you know, I just added in what I was craving. So I was craving eggs. I wanted to freaking eat cheese without feeling like someone was going to like call me out, right? I just wanted to eat whatever I wanted whenever I wanted. So I tried steak. I had a bite of my boyfriend's burger, and I didn't like those things anymore. So I used to love those things, and like I don't know what happened, but I didn't like them anymore. So I haven't been eating them. If I had a bite of my boyfriend's steak and loved it, I would have steak tonight for dinner. Like, nothing is off limits for me unless I don't like it. So I'm not eating dairy because everyone on Instagram tells me not to. I'm not eating meat because XYZ. I just, you know, I love seafood, always have. So I eat seafood. You know, for the same reason I don't like, a certain kind of cracker. It doesn't matter what food group it is. I eat what I want, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just landed there because of my personal preferences, but I had, enough of that curiosity without judgment to try, okay, what do I like? Because it's been a long time since I've eaten a lot of these foods because I told myself they were not even an option. So it's like, okay, let's get back to the drawing board. What do I actually like? Because I freaking love some nice cheddar cheese on my breakfast sandwich. You know what I mean? So that's different for everyone. Everyone has different taste buds. So there's a big period of exploration and curiosity that needs to happen if you're kind of coming out. If you're hearing this thinking like, this resonates with me, then there's that big period. And what I will also say is that we're in the bubble of health. So we look at everything with this, with this lens of health. There's so many people that are vegan, for animal rights. And there's so many people that are vegan for health reasons that have no disordered eating tendencies. And there's so many people that do it from the environment. So we get, what's gotten me in problems is as someone who did used to be vegan, I get a lot of angry comments from people that are vegan that are like, really mad at me for taking a picture of a yogurt. And they're like, how could you do this to an animal, X, Y, Z? And, I kind of have to take those strides. But at some point it's like, but I'm important too. Like, what about what I want? So you just have to kind of respect. It's easy when you're in our positions to kind of have that like radar, because I was, I was that person that was like kind of really exclusive. And so now I have those goggles on that's like, oh, you're vegan. Are you doing it for the right reasons? When like, for example, I had a client yesterday who came in and she was like a total normal eater. And I kept like probing, like, does she have disordered eating tendencies? Because most of my clients do. And she just straight up didn't. And I was like, whoa, I forgot that like not everyone has eating issues. And she just like straight up wants healthier. And I haven't had a client like that in so long. And it was such a breath, it was just interesting for me because I was like, okay, rewind. Don't just assume that everyone has an issue, right? So it's been a really interesting learning experience for me and for dealing with my clients that like, don't go in with any preconceived notions, no matter if they're paleo, if they're this, if they're that, because there's like a jillion reasons why people are doing what they're doing, and you just gotta, you gotta find out why.
For sure. No, that's a good reminder. So talk about how you made the shift and what that was like for you.
Yeah, so I went to FNCE last year, which is the big nutrition conference, and I had been getting really close with a few dietitians like Robin from the Real FRD I've known for years, and Kylie of I'ma Eat That, and a few other girls, and spending a lot of time with them, and then kind of started reading intuitive eating. And it really started when Davida from the Healthy Maven had me on her podcast, and she asked me if I felt like healthy living bloggers were kind of perpetuating this problem with orthorexia, because we're always posting these perfect pictures of healthy food and XYZ. And I told her, yes, I do. And that's when I kind of wrote that whole post and everything started changing. And so really I just started like surrounding myself with all this new information about intuitive eating and body positivity and self-care and self-love, and reading all these different books that really inspired me. And it was like a whole new world. And dieting really is so much a religion. So getting, doing something different is it's strange, and it affects a lot of different, it can affect a lot of different aspects in your life because food's important. So I really just kind of put the brakes on, on the whole, I'm not going to say put the brakes on plant-based, but I really just like opened my brain up, and I was just more conscious of the decisions I was making. So like last night I went to dinner at a restaurant, and I had like 2 pieces of toast and 2 eggs for breakfast. And I haven't eaten a lot of bread yesterday. And then at dinner, I caught myself saying, I am craving pizza, but I should get this one salad. And I heard that thought, and immediately I was like, well, I'm ordering the pizza. Cause like I caught my old like diet mentality self telling myself, oh, you should eat this, even though you're in the mood for that. And if you order a salad, you're going to go home and eat 50 other things because you never satisfied yourself. So I really started listening to myself and listening to what I wanted, and feeling this whole new sense of like fullness and freedom, because I was eating things that before I was like, you cannot go eat that because it's not vegan or it's not X or Y or Z. And, you know, I'd go to bed and I would have was really craving dessert, but I didn't have it. And I was like, you know, I used to be like maybe proud of myself that I was like, oh, you know, I didn't have dessert. I resisted, whatever. And now I'm like proud of myself when I do have dessert because I'm like feeding my craving, listening to my body. And it really has just been this whole new sense of satisfaction that's taught me just so much about how things can change when you really just start to listen. Just listening to yourself. We listen. Everything we do is so like cued externally. So it's I should be eating what I see on Instagram. I should be eating what this magazine told me to eat. You know, we're not eating based on our bodies. We've just gotten so far from that because there's so much information overload. So,
well, we're kind of taught that we can't be trusted, right? I mean, we're taught that the body is sort of to be feared or to be, you know, to be afraid, to be afraid of. And then it leaves you with this like, well, then what am I supposed to do? I must look to some guru to kind of guide me through what I should be feeding myself, when in reality, you should be your own guru, right? Developing that through paying attention to your thoughts and your body in general.
Yes. And now I have, you know, like these diet goggles where now I just hear everyone talking about changing their body all the time to the point where I'm like, I'm so just like, oh, I can't, I just don't contribute to it. Whether it's my friend saying, oh, she's so skinny, or oh, I'm going to have to eat salad all week, or I have to lose weight for my wedding. Like things that I used to hear and not think anything of, I now hear, and I'm just like, I will not contribute to that diet conversation about let's manipulate our bodies to feel better about ourselves. And it's just so interesting how when you're conscious of things,
yes,
and when you really start listening for how many men and women talk about manipulating their bodies, it's like honestly so astounding.
Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of really important things there. I think it is part of the process that intuitive eating brings to you. And this is why I think it's such meaningful work is, you know, talking about food can seem a little bit superficial sometimes where it's like, I don't know, it just seems like it doesn't matter all that much. And that's why I actually have my podcast called Nutrition Matters, is because I love to talk about what matters. Like that's literally kind of just the way that my like soul works, is I really like connecting with people about those things. And so what matters about nutrition is the fact that it's sort of a physical thing that you can do that can teach you all kinds of things on an abstract level. So you can't help but learn how to be a more intuitive, kind, gentle, loving, understanding, and less judgmental person with others when you practice that with yourself, with food, right? It's like this physical way you can. Yeah, and
so
it teaches you how to be that way in life, right? So you practice paying attention to your thoughts and really questioning some of your assumptions with food. But then you learn that you can do that with people, right? You can say, okay, I used to take a look at someone in a larger body and think X, Y, and Z about them. But now that I'm noticing those thoughts come in and out of my mind, I'm recognizing that that's not really in alignment with who I want to be. And that's not fair. And that's not what I want people to judge me for some outward thing on my body or about who I am. I want people to take time to get to know me. So I'm going to do that. And what's crazy is intuitive eating can kind of help you learn how to do that process, you know, in so many different ways.
Yeah, I feel like my mind is blowing right now. I'm like, I have to write a blog post about this. I wrote a post called How Eating Intuitively Helped Me Live More Intuitively. And I think I was kind of I didn't get into the whole thought thing so much, but, you know, like, it's just crazy how much it's affected. I mean, it's really just affected my entire life. And it's, and I won't, you know, talk about that post. You know, I could talk about that post forever, but it's just crazy how exactly like what you said, when your perception of food changes, you are in tune in effect, you know, getting more in touch with your own thoughts, which just has this overflow effect into like every aspect of your life. So that's probably the most rewarding thing of it all, and it has nothing to do with food, you
Right.
know?
Right, but it's sort of this window into such a beautiful way of living, right? Where it's very hard to be so meta and talk about all these abstract things and make them happen, but it's kind of cool that we have food to sort of teach us these lessons to help us get there, you know? Um and then
Right. And it was so unexpected. Like I just noticed it about myself. I was like, it was just such an interesting thing to think about that I was really just an unforeseen, huge, positive, benefit of the whole thing.
yeah. Oh, I love it. And if it's impossible to know that that would be the consequence when embarking on something like that, or when even just sort of intuitively coming to those conclusions on your own. But it's been so true for me too in my own life, is you can't help but become more intuitive and in tune with your own inner sort of wisdom as you work on your relationship with food. And that's one of the things I love about this work, is it's so much more than food, but the food teaches us how to sort of learn those abstract lessons.
Right.
Another thing you talked about, Alexis, is that you see it everywhere now that you're sensitized to it.
Oh my
And
God.
that is seriously such a burden sometimes, you know? It's almost so, it depends on your personality, but me, like, I'm a really sensitive person, and sometimes I just want to just not have to like fight that fight anymore. And even in my own circles, sometimes it's just like, I'm so sick of like knowing how annoying these conversations are. I wish I was kind of clueless still. It would be so much easier sometimes to exist in this culture. So I don't know if I have anything amazing to add to that, other than that is just like a real struggle. And I think also a struggle of people who listen to this podcast. They've written in and said, okay, now my whole family annoys me because this is all we talk about. And it is somewhat of a burden.
It is a huge burden. It's like when you know, buy a new car and then all you see is that car. And before you never saw it. It's literally, I forgot what it's called. There's a word for it. There's
There's
a
a thing. I
phenomenon.
don't know what it's called either, but I know what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
And for me, it was like actually kind of made me take a closer look at with like on the people I spend my time with, and because I started hearing these things, and it was like I just was so turned off to it. Like to people that talk that way, that's what they need to surround their conversation with. It's so not my thing. And but in a positive light, it's made me seek out women who love themselves, you know, in their own skin, and people that bring that positive light out of me. Simi Bodich is like the perfect example of this. She's the health coach that works with women with disordered eating, and we both live in Columbus, and we became friends probably like a year ago, and you know, we bond, you know, over having such similar beliefs with all these things. And you know, what I try to keep in mind is that for, you know, people who, you know, maybe your friends back in college or whoever they are, very few people, you know, know this perspective. And so it's kind of like, okay, their thoughts are maybe my thoughts like 5 years ago, and they haven't been on this journey. So to them saying like, you know, my best friend called me actually a couple weeks ago saying, I really want to lose 5 pounds. And I was like, okay, let's talk about this. And it ended up being this huge conversation about her boyfriend actually making her feel insecure, and she didn't actually want to lose weight at all, but felt like she had to. And it was this incredible conversation. But I think it's just made me, you know, I think the more people that look at it this way, the better, that can kind of encourage those conversations to not proliferate, if you will. You know, we just have to keep on keeping on and spreading the, you know, when someone says that to you, when someone says, you know, oh, I can't eat it because I'm on a diet, and you know, taking it with a grain of salt, because we gotta like accept that the diet industry is like a 30 trillion gajillion dollar industry, and there's far more people on a diet than not, I would say. So at some point you gotta just accept that's going to happen, but also like, okay, how can I rise above, and how can I maybe say one thing that could make that person second guess? Like maybe it's even, you know, raising your daughter or son to not only compliment people based on their appearance. Like maybe they say, you're so smart, or you are, or even to your daughter, you're so smart, other than your dress is so pretty, you are so beautiful, you are so strong, using complimenting people based like on things other than their appearance, I think is a
Oh,
huge
that's
thing that I've done.
huge. And
Yeah, like
if you
we're
look at
just
people that way, like with those eyes of what do I really actually legitimately like about this person, right? Because yeah, they might have like a pretty shirt on or something, and that's like an okay compliment, but really trying to think about what do I really like about people, and what do they maybe need to hear is such a different way of looking at the world than sort of like through this lens of, oh, I'm so insecure about things, and what are people thinking about me, and the only compliments I give are sort of a reflection of what's going on internally for me. That's so often why people do say, "Oh, you look so skinny in those jeans or whatever." It's because that's what they're
right.
struggling with inside. And if you
Correct.
can just
Like I would never go up to someone and be like, "You look so skinny." That just sounds like such a weird thing to say to me. I mean, even when even before, like I just like that's not something I think like my friends that had eating disorders, I mean, even with them, like I would never say that to them because that's just kind of encouraging them. But that's just not something that needs to be commented on, because even that's not really a compliment to a lot of people either. Like if people told me I was skinny, I'm like, is that nice? Like is that even like it's just so uncomfortable. So, an activity I do with my clients sometimes, it's like, okay, pick someone that you really look up to. And then, okay, why do you look up to them? Write down 10 adjectives of why you look up to them. And it's like, warm, caring, powerful, determined. They're not like skinny, pretty. You know what I mean? It's like
for sure.
we don't even, it's not even the top of our value system. And if it is, like, you better check yourself. But you know what I mean? We forget that those things they're not even important.
Right. And they're not important to us with who we love and who we want to connect with. So why do we place so much importance on that for ourselves? That's like a big question to ask yourself. If this is top of your mind, and something you're just beating yourself up over, really ask yourself like, well, what do I love about people in my life? And yeah, you usually don't list like, oh, I just love their abs or whatever.
Yeah, the best elbows ever.
Yeah, exactly. So I really want to hear about this. You mentioned that you talk to your clients about that little activity, and I do another activity with my clients sometimes too, and I want to ask you it. So if you could go back in time and talk to yourself before you kind of went down the vegan road, what would you say? And it's okay if it's, nothing different, but what would you tell yourself, with your wisdom of being a little bit older and wiser?
Oh, that's such an interesting question. Hmm. I think I would tell myself that life is too short to not live every day to the fullest. And that probably sounds a little cheesy, but to me, it means life's just too short to not eat the donut. You know what I mean? And life is just too short not to get the latte that you actually want versus like a coffee with whatever is in it. You know what I mean? And I get pushback sometimes from people saying, well, lucky for you, you're in a small body, you can eat whatever you want. And eating intuitively, it doesn't just mean eating donuts all the time. And I just use that example because like I love donuts, but I think I'm getting off track, but I think that's also a really important thing to point out. Have you ever kind of heard that
Oh yeah.
that
Oh
pushback
yeah.
from people?
No,
Yeah, like
and
it
there
might
are
just be
I think that there is a
okay.
phase that a lot of people have to kind of go through when they've been so entrenched in diet culture for so long. There is sort of a typical sort of pendulum swing over into like I'm proving to myself on a physical level that I really don't have restrictions anymore. And yeah, you can feel pretty out of control and it can be really difficult to navigate, but it usually doesn't last very long for people. And it's not the goal of where you want to land with intuitive eating, because intuitively your body will communicate, hey, donuts all day doesn't really feel very good and doesn't help me function and doesn't help me be my best self. And so while I do think that that's not what intuitive eating is, I do see that in practical life, that a lot of people kind of go through that as a phase of discovering kind of where they want to hone in on as their place where they feel imbalance.
Oh, totally. That's like, yeah, definitely that phase is huge. And I have clients that kind of told themselves that they could skip over that phase, and they can't eat intuitively because they've never actually let themselves go, and they've never actually let themselves enjoy the foods that they, actually want. So,
well, and so you said let yourself.
Also, like,
oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to comment on what you just said. So letting yourself go is like a phrase that really freaks people out. They're like, oh, so intuitive eating is letting yourself go? Like, run the other direction. And I think it's important. Right. It's an important distinction that you're not really letting yourself go, so to speak, kind of the way we talk about it in our culture, but you're just letting yourself like be, letting yourself exist in your life and in the moment. And sometimes that means donuts, and sometimes that means salads, and all of that is okay.
Right.
Yeah. So keep going, though.
Exactly. Well, I was just thinking, I really wish in school, like, I wish we had a class on disordered eating. Like I just think it's really outdated, and our education on the topic is, this is anorexia and this is bulimia, and you read about it like it's this extreme thing. I used to say, oh, I could never work with people with eating disorders. That sounds terrible. It's like so mental.
I said the same thing.
I just had this. I mean, I should know by now that when I say those things, it's probably like exactly what I'm doing. But, we just didn't have good education on it. And disordered eating was something I didn't even really know how to define. And I think that had I been given the opportunity to work with an intuitive eating dietitian in the beginning, or had I read the book, I would have counseled very differently than I did in the beginning, where the focus was hyper clean eating. You know what I mean? So I think I learned, I don't regret anything. I've learned so much along the way, and you have to start somewhere and you have to make mistakes. And I've still only been practicing, for a few years now. So I'm still young in the business, but, I think going back to your question about what would you tell yourself, I think just, I'm not always very good at just letting myself be. Like, even, I wake up in the morning and I'm like getting high off thinking about all the things I could get done before 10. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get coffee. I'm going to do that one thing on my to-do list. I'm going to go pee. I'm going to get dressed. And it's like weird. It's like, I just cannot, just chill. And I'm in a way that like now, like I did nothing for 3 hours this morning. So don't think I'm like killing it all day. That's definitely not the case. But, I'm working on not thriving so much off of my to-do list. Like I need to stop, like the whole idolization of productivity. It's like we're in this society where it's like drones of efficiency, and, Present Over Perfect is a good book to talk about that stuff. But, really just slowing down and like chill out, like what actually matters in life, stop overdoing it in every aspect of life, and things start to look a lot, you have time to like find the beauty in things,
Yeah, I love that answer. So overall, like no regrets, and you wouldn't really change anything, but just some advice in terms of like enjoy life and slow down and take things one step at a time, and it's okay to make mistakes, and keep working hard, basically.
Yeah, and find things that excite you besides food. And if you think about food all the time, there's probably something going on. And for me, I used to sit on my phone and just like stare at recipes and just stare at it was just an obsession. And at the time, like, yeah, what's wrong with that? I like looking at recipes. My boyfriend thought he's like, you're so cute, you're always looking at recipes. But now, like, we just got a house, and I'm like, now I'm just always looking at furniture, and it's such a breath of fresh air to not be staring at food every minute of every day. And if all you're thinking about is food, of course you're going to struggle with eating because every second you're wondering what you can eat, even though you're already full and you just ate. Maybe you're not satisfying yourself, maybe, XYZ is happening, but long story short, if you're thinking about food all the time, there's something going on.
Yeah, that's
Would
a
you
good
agree?
indicator. No, yeah, definitely. Food should require some of your time and energy and mindful awareness, but if it's occupying the majority of that for you, that's a good indicator that you might want to, take a look at what's going on because, yeah, it deserves some time, but not all your time.
And like help yourself. So if you pull up Instagram and I keep saying Instagram because so many of my clients are influenced by these things, but if you pull up Instagram, your whole feed is like bowls of food. You need to find some other inspiration. But follow home decor, follow puppies, follow something else, or just freaking delete Instagram for a week. But like, what is in your, what you're putting in front of your eyes is what's going to be on your mind. So if you're staring at birds and nature all day, you're not going to be thinking about what kind of yogurt you want every 5 seconds. You know what I mean? So just relook at what you're feeding your mind all day, every day, and how that might need a shift to help you kind of change your thought process. I always tell my clients this quote that they say, you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you think of that kind of as like what you choose to spend, what your brain spends its time on, you know what I mean? It's like, you don't want to, you're not a salad. You don't need to think about salad all day long. You want to surround yourself with other things that excite you beyond food, things that inspire you, if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. And I recently actually had a pretty long hiatus from social media, pretty long for me as someone who, uses social media for my business and is an important part of my work. I think that's what makes it hard for me personally is when I'm putting myself out there and like for my business, I don't struggle with social media personally. But the business side is hard. So anyway, what I was going to say is that I took a break just because we just moved houses and it was so much work. And my husband and I actually did like basically all the moving on our own. I have so many cuts and bruises and I'm so strong right now. But anyway, like I literally couldn't. My time was just taken up by going to my office and working with my clients and then coming home and like doing that for a long time. And things are kind of starting to settle in again. And I'm getting back on social media a little bit more. And I'm like, oh yeah, this kind of is hard. And I do surround myself with really positive people and lots of great messages. But for some reason, I think there's just like, for me, it's not all this pressure to like eat quinoa bowls all day or something. But for me, it's like all the opinions, all the input, all the images. It's just like too stimulating. Like I just need like stillness and nature. What?
And like all the, and myself included, like we use social media to tell people what's going on in our lives. And it's just like, I get on and you said it perfectly. I'm so overstimulated. I'm like, oh, I should be doing this. I should be doing this. I should be getting married. I should be eating this.
Right.
Like, and I'm a very sensitive person. And I am someone who gets affected when I go on social media. And I know if I'm getting affected, then how are my clients feeling? So yeah, it might not always be food, but even just our brains and how they're kind of changing to be so stimulated all the time. I don't think it's necessarily the best thing all the time.
It's kind of nice. Like when I took that break, it was kind of nice just to remember like, oh, here's my little life and here's my little circle of people I care about who I call on the phone or I visit with in person and we're all good. And, and it's just like, it's just good to remember what really matters and what's really close to you. Sometimes the connection that we think we have on social media can actually be such a source of disconnection. It's kind of ironic, but I think it has its merits and it's valuable in so many ways, but it is something to sort of keep in check. And again, learning intuitive eating and really trying to practice that can help give you a window into being intuitive with the type of media you're taking in and to recognize when it's getting out of control for you or when it's working for you or when it's not. because you're learning that practice of intuition and mindfulness and awareness and gentleness with yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And I think another point is we, just with technology these days are constantly taking in just so many different forms of media. And what I've told myself and what I'm realizing is it's okay to not know. It's okay to not know what that person ate yesterday and to not know, who just got pregnant, X, Y, Z. Sometimes it's just nice to just be and to just have a clear brain space where you can just connect with yourself and connect with the people you love and not be inundated with, news that doesn't really maybe have a place at that time. So that's something I really started to tell myself. Like, I notice I feel better before Instagram than after I get off. And I don't mean to like criminalize Instagram. It's very important to my business and I do love it, but I'm just going to be real and saying that sometimes it makes me feel crappy about myself. So, if you
that's
feel that
so fascinating, because to the average person who sees you on Instagram, and I just pulled you up, like 43.4 thousand followers, and you're smiling and you have this cute boyfriend and you post all these cute pictures of food and like you're just adorable and like,
oh my God,
well, this is exactly why I want to talk about this this is why I want to talk about this, because people will look at you and say, she has it all. Like, she has everything you could possibly want. Look at her life, and then to hear you talk about this is just really important. So let's hear what you have to say about it.
And that is so important to me. That's why I'm like brutally honest on my blog. And I think if you ask my readers, maybe like a top word to describe me, I think most people would say transparent. I have a lot of struggles in my life, and as does everyone. And, I'm sure mine are greater than some people's, and mine are less than people's, but I don't even know if I'm saying that grammatically correctly. But, when you pull up people's feeds and you look at them and you think, oh, they have everything. I'm just really big on making sure people know. I like to talk about what I'm going through and to show people that, I just went to a really fun wedding in LA, and we opened a new restaurant, and it all looks fun and dandy on Instagram, because Instagram is a place, for positivity. I'm not gonna post the picture of my boyfriend just getting a new job and not having a stable income and it being really stressful, or me, working a zillion jobs because I have to pay off $80,000 of student loan debt, or there's just so many things that we don't talk about because it's like, I'm not going to bring down the world with, woe is me. But I have a lot of my own, a ton of my own issues. I cried like 3 times this week over things. So I just want people to know even about me, because I know people can look at my feed and be like, oh, the restaurant's in the blog and what a cute boyfriend. Like, she's lucky. And of course I am lucky, but, I have plenty of stuff going on in my life that isn't the lovely Instagram material, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think when we all sit back and really think about that, we know that logically and intuitively, of course, everyone has their struggles. It's sort of like a cliche, like duh. But when you're just scrolling through, and there's almost this subconscious feeling of like, gosh, that person has it all figured out, and look at me, I'm such a mess. And it's just important for people to hear realness, and I love that about you, and I'm so glad that you're willing to share what it's really like to kind of be in that space and to have, I'm sure that there's a level of sort of a burden of having all these people who follow you and who are interested in your life and probably sending you lots of messages. And I get lots of messages, and I don't have the reach that you do, even close. And so I can't imagine there's probably a level of a burden there as well. And so, yeah, we need to just keep in mind, like, even these healthy living bloggers that you mentioned earlier when you got that question, are they part of the problem? I like that answer. I felt that way when I first got on Instagram for my business, and I started following dietitians and food people and whatever. I was like, oh my, what is going on? Like, why is everyone like not eating dairy and not eating wheat, and like, what? Like, why are we doing this? And then I would have clients come in and be like, oh, I saw these people on Instagram. She's a dietitian. She told me to eat this way. And I'm just like, ah.
Right.
And so I think it's so important.
And that's why I kind of went like 180 when I like, I would never, in the past, I would never post. I keep talking about this breakfast sandwich because it's like the best thing ever, and I can't wait to eat it Sunday. But it's so good. And, for me, that was so symbolic. Like, I post that on my feed. It's like, it's not like unhealthy, but it's just like a super bready egg sandwich with cheese and this aioli and arugula, and it's so freaking good. And to me, it was like so symbolic of my food freedom. And, I was like, my life is imperfect, and I freaking love it that way. And I do not want my feed, even my pictures, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to post that because the spoon had peanut butter on it, or like every picture has to be amazing. I was just like, screw this. Why? Like, I want my feed to like, personify my life, and my life is messy and imperfect and funny and like weird. And I hope that people can see that when they read my material and see my content, because it's super important for me.
Yeah, that is really, really important. And that's helping more people than to have you express kind of how you approach things, and to give room for, enjoying life and taking part in the pleasurable experience of eating, and not being restrictive and obsessive and kind of crazy around food. So yeah, I wasn't sure when I asked you to come on, I wasn't sure if you'd say something like it was really hard to kind of keep up the almost facade of like perfect eating. I wasn't sure if that would be your experience, because I've had a lot of people express that to me, who do post a lot of like food pictures, or sort of like more lifestyle food bloggers, kind of constantly feeling like they have to put content out, and sort of maybe posting something and then adding more to the plate after the picture, or, kind of trying to make it look perfect and then eating it a different way just because real life.
Oh, definitely.
So I was interested to know if any of that sort of got to you, or if you feel that way, trying to keep up with the sheer demand of content.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's actually interesting because I straight up like stopped blogging for a while because I just lost meaning in it. I was like, this just is not resonating with me right now. It's not what I set out to do. It's just become this like thing that just was like, ugh. I just was like not feeling it, and I wrote about it. And I think the post I wrote when I wrote this popular post, I'm trying to think which one it was. It was one of those, I can't remember what it was. It was like before the unicorn frappuccino post. I hadn't written, it actually might have been the post I came back with, which was like one of my most viewed posts ever. But yeah, how I kind of handled it is like this constant needing of like content and perfection. I was like, you know what? I'm boycotting. Like, I'm just not doing it for a while. And then, I kind of came to terms, and I'm like, okay, I miss blogging. Like, I feel like I'm in a better place now. And then I really just started like, where it used to be that I would, if I was eating some gorgeous salad, it was like, I have to photograph this. Where now it's like, if I'm eating a gorgeous pizza, I have to photograph it. Like, I want to show the fun stuff. I'm very careful with my content now. I have so many readers that are clients and that have eating disorders. And like, the last thing I'd ever want was to like, exacerbate those triggering feelings. So it's been so cool that, it shifted to this thing where like, there's actually so much less pressure, because anything that looks perfect is not real and will probably be triggering to someone. So, I mean, if you look at my stuff, like, unless I'm promoting a recipe that was taken, the picture was taken with a camera that I posted on the blog, it's mostly iPhone stuff. It's like not perfect at all. It's just because that, again, that's just who I am. So I used to be like a slave to like the clean eating, healthy world, and feeling like I needed this really perfect content. Whereas now I feel like I'm a fighter for this whole other group of people. So I have such a more personal, stronger purpose and reason to post content. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's so easy to overthink content too, right? It's like, well, if I post this, then people might think that. And if I go through this all the time. It's like, gosh, sometimes I just end up not doing anything because I'm just like, I overthink it.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone has an opinion, and everyone's. Sorry?
Sorry, I was just thinking, my brain is going a million miles an hour. I was just thinking also with posting, like, you know, you'll post what you eat for dinner, and then like someone's going to judge it, and maybe because they need like a bunch more than you do or a bunch less than you do, and it's so hard because we forget that we're not all equal, you know?
Well, and like you might eat a little less one night, but that no one knows what you ate for lunch, right? And no one knows what you might have eaten before bed, and it's just so out of context, and people are so ready to just like pounce on you and be bugged that you didn't do it just the way that they wanted you to. And I commend you for just like putting yourself out there and being real, because that's what really matters, and that's what resonates with people, and that's what helps people. And you know what? You can post a picture of a salad, because guess what? Normal eaters eat salads every once in a while too. Like, it's not it's not like about eating pizza or not eating pizza. It's sort of like the reasons why really, really matter more, but we can't show those in a picture. So therein lies the problem, right?
Right, exactly. And I love your point about salad too. Like, salad is not the enemy. Like, I eat plenty of salad, and I love salad, and I post salad because it's just another food. It doesn't have to be this whole thing, you know? So,
and sometimes it's exactly what like sounds appetizing and appealing to you in the moment, and maybe your body really, you know, needs some veggies in that moment. And I've definitely experienced that in my own life, but I will overthink it sometimes. Like, do I want to post this picture of a salad? Will everyone think that I just eat salads all day, every day? Because I definitely don't. Like, you know, it's just,
it's like, I just had 3 brownies and here's the salad I had after that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, it's a tricky thing, but I think anyone who's, you know, trying to be part of the solution, is commendable and is doing great work. And I love that you're showing an evolution and a process and a journey, and that's resonating with your readers, and your reach is so incredibly huge, and that's so important and meaningful. And I'm just so glad that you're doing the work you're doing. It's really important. So thank you.
That's so sweet. It really means a lot. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. So Alexis, tell people how they can get in touch with you through social media, or take a look at your blog if they haven't seen it already. Just talk quickly about how to access your stuff and your content.
Yeah, so the blog is hummusapien.com, HUMMUSAPIEN.com. And my Instagram is @hummusapien. I'm hummusapien on Facebook, Twitter, all that jazz.
Well,
Awesome.
Alexis, thank you so much for being here and for talking about your process with intuitive eating and your own particular approach to food. That was really, really fun to hear the inside story of a food blogger, food lifestyle. And what else did you call it for your blog?
I think I say food wellness.
Food wellness.
And lifestyle. I don't know. Inspiration?
Yeah, inspiration. There you go. It's so important. It's such an important message that people don't hear so very often. And I'm grateful for your transparency and for talking about the realness that is your life.
Yes, it's all real. So yeah, I hope it resonated with people, and I hope that people found it inspiring.
Well, I sincerely hope you've enjoyed this conversation. If you haven't already, please go ahead and leave a review on iTunes. Thanks again so much for listening, and we'll see you soon for another episode.